Okay, well, I'd just like to welcome you all. I am Mark Baker, and I am the owner of Baker's Green Acres here in lovely Marion, Michigan. Here, let me shut that light off behind me. That looks like it's going to be a problem. All right, stand by. And let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll get into a little bit more about how our program's going to proceed. I graduated high school in 1978, and I went to an aircraft maintenance school after that for 2 years. Then I went to work for Lockheed Airplane Company in 1980, and I was there until 1984, and I joined the U.S. Air Force. And I stayed with the Air Force for 20 years. So I retired in '04, and during that time I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I did have a piece of property at my last duty assignment where I had some chickens, and I had a couple of goats, and I even had some beef cows there, and learned some things there, learned a lot there. I was there for about 5 years. And it wasn't a big place at all. It was only 13 acres, and it really didn't have anything, you know. And I was just pretty much keeping myself busy when I was in from my duties at my job. But then when I retired, I really wanted to be involved in something that to me was more real, you know, like really living life. In the Air Force, we were always practicing and, you know, scenarios, and then occasionally we did get in some wars, and we would just break things. We would wreck people's stuff. And I knew I didn't want to stay with that. And I had been places in my career, and I'd seen people who were in businesses that were farm-centered, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something where I created something that was useful, and what's more useful than food? And there was just some draw to it. So my wife and I looked for a place before I retired, and we found this place here. It's in Marion, Michigan. The last duty assignment was in Montana, Great Falls, Montana. And we moved here, and we really didn't know what we were going to do. This is an 80-acre farm, and I don't have a lot of experience in real farming, and I got some hay equipment, and I broke that and wound up getting some real expensive hay equipment, and then I wound up selling that because it was very expensive, and then I wound up with some middle of the road stuff, and that's the stuff I have today. And I will touch on that. I mean, that's going to be part of this I'd say course. We can call it a course. I prefer to think of it more as I am guiding you on your adventure, and the real horsepower is right between your ears, not mine. You know, I'm just going to bring it out of you, I believe. And you know, my Air Force training has helped this, because I was expected to motivate young troops as an older sergeant, and I think I got pretty good at that after a while. And it's not always just screaming at them, you know. It's talking to them and helping them to discover that they have potential. And if you're tuned in right now, I can tell you you've got potential, because one of the rules that we live by here is do the thing. All right. You see Nike, they just do it. Well, that comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he had a saying that he created, I guess, and it was, if you do the thing, you will have the power. If you do not do the thing, you will not have the power. So you've already done the thing. If you're watching me right now, you've said, I want to hear what he has to say, and you hit the like button, and you did the pay button and all that stuff, and then you're here and you're listening to this, and that's good. So there's a level of victory already for you. Okay, So then I stayed at that farm for a little while, and then we moved here, and okay, that's where I was. Okay, so I got some hay equipment, and it's some older stuff. So I cut hay here, and then I had to figure out what do you do with the hay. Sell it. It's not really worth a whole lot. $30 a bale, maybe 40, 50 in a good year. Not too good. Place like this, I'll get maybe 100 off of it. Okay, but I'm not going to make a living doing that. So then we started to search around a little bit and listen to people. We listened to some folks in the neighborhood, and they told us we'd be smart to put in hog houses here. So those are great big huge houses, and they'll have thousands of hogs in each one, and great big fans on the end of them, and then they really stink the neighborhood up and really irritate folks. And then me, as the farmer, would just be responsible to make sure that the fans stayed on and the feed doesn't get clogged, and then the manure that's under it, I have to dispose of that. So yeah, there was dollars in it for sure, but my wife was unhappy with it, and it would have really changed the landscape of this place. And part of what we're about is we want to live someplace that's it's nice, it's pretty. You know, I lived on military bases, and they're not pretty, and they're not nice, and they're noisy, and we didn't want that anymore, and we didn't want that for our children. So to change this place into a factory farm didn't sit too well. It was a way to farm, but it didn't sit well. About that time, I went to a small farms conference here in Michigan, and I listened to a man by the name of Joel Salatin. That's a name you're going to want to remember. And he was a keynote speaker, and he really got my attention. And my wife bought one of his books. I wound up reading the book, but not till the next year, and decided that that was a better route to go than the factory farm route for us. I mean, for some people it isn't, you know. But for us, it was the best way to go. The type of people that we are. We didn't want to just get plugged into one process and have it be all day long, that process. We wanted a bunch of different processes because we're inquisitive. And if you're here, I would say that you're probably inquisitive too. Life is full of wonders. And we have to pursue those wonders, and farming is a great way to do it because, I mean, every day it's something different, and I can use my own thought process and my own skill set. I pull out my toolbox, and I go to it, and I'm able to create some things that I think are cool. And, I mean, there's so many people that do cool things, and I just want to be able to do them all, you know. You can't do them all, but you can do a lot of them. So this route was the route that we definitely felt as though we should go. And we got into the pastured poultry real heavy. We got into pastured pork pretty heavy, and then we started learning how to graze cattle. Then I started milking cows, and then I added more pigs, and then I was doing something like 15,000 chickens a year, and then I had 10 employees. And then the butcher shop we also process on the farm was cranking 3-4 days a week. Then people aren't getting along so good, and what happens then is you can't pay very good attention to everything, and so you start having some problems. And I can tell you a couple of problems that I had. My son was running the pastured poultry field, and he fed in the morning and then at night. And we had a really, really hot spell. And some friends showed up. And we said, well, let's get out of here. Let's go to the lake. And so we did. We went to the lake and went swimming because it's really hot. And when we got home, we were slated to pick up chickens that night to process the next morning. Well, when we went out there, they were all dead. And it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 chickens that were dead. And these are all, 6-pound, ready-to-go, beautiful broilers, dead as doornails. Turns out that the water system had plugged, because our our knowledge of the water system at that time was very new because we had just built it, and it still had some bugs in it, and we'll talk about those. And so that was a huge loss, and I got all those chickens, I piled them up, I picked them all up, and then I thought for a minute, on the advice of a friend, you should claim that on insurance. Back then I had insurance for stuff like that. And so I put them all at the base of a really nice tree so they'd stay cool for a couple days, and the insurance man could come see them. But then I changed my mind and I decided I didn't want to do that. But in that time they got so loose that I couldn't even pick them up. I scraped up what I could, but they killed the tree. There was so much that ran down into the roots of the tree. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But we learned a lot. Also had 30 cows, and they all had a calf. And I was rotationally grazing them around. Well, that requires that I keep a pretty close eye on them, because it's sort of like juggling chainsaws or having a tiger by the tail. Because if they get out and they go to the neighbor's house and get in the neighbor's corn, they can do a ton of damage. So you're always kind of stressed out about that, and then you got to make sure that they have water. You got to make sure they're moved every day, so there's a lot of footwork. It was extremely busy when we were at the peak of our production. And then running a lot of hogs too. That is a little bit on the stressful side, because they can get out too, and is a lot of work keeping them fed. And you know, we have to rotationally graze them as well, and it was just a ton of work, right? And it wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. It was not family friendly. It wasn't, because I had to push my kids as though they were employees, which they were. And then when we would get together for a campfire at night, it was kind of like shop talk. And it was, you know, you didn't do this, or, well, you didn't tell me to do that. And you can imagine where it went. But we got through it, all right? Now we've come to the point where my 3 oldest sons are out of the house. And my oldest daughter is closely behind them. She's working off the farm. And my wife and I have decided that it's better to homestead and enjoy the farm and enjoy the animals, expand our processes. By processes, I mean, you know, milking a cow is a process. Growing a vegetable garden is a process. Learning how to butcher chickens is a process. Learning how to make prosciutto hams is a process. Learning how to tune a gasoline engine is a process. All those things are different processes. And we want to be able to hone those processes and enjoy those processes. And I also want to fish. I want to make that a process too. That's a part of this whole homesteading thing, is going out and doing things that brings sustenance back to us. And I wasn't able to do that when we were commercial farming. So you'll hear me refer to commercial farming, and that's what I mean. We started this in '04, that's when I retired. And we were at our peak probably in 15. No, probably 10. That was when we were at our peak in 2010. And we've started to go taper off since then. As people leave, you know, we do less and less. And then we had some problems because of our pigs, and that was a big court case and everything like that. And that took a lot of wind out of our sails too. So, and that's, you know, something that we will talk about. We will talk about regulation and homesteading. Regulation was a big factor in me deciding to go back to homesteading, because the regulations would change, and I actually needed I needed a lawyer to keep me briefed and abreast of what the changes were and stuff like that. They're not designed to foster small farming. They're designed to hinder small farming. But I don't really want to talk about that. I really want to talk about homesteading, because this is where I think you should go, and this is where I'm going. So, okay, here it is, 2018. We have 2 sows. I have 1 milk cow. I have about 10 calves total. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 calves total, and I'm probably going to be up to 10. I raised about 400 chickens this summer, maybe, and I have about 50 layers. Okay, and I'm still pretty heavy. I don't need all that. Here in 15 minutes. I don't need all that. I really don't, because it's more than I need to feed my family. I have a big vegetable garden, and then I do some rotational cropping, and I'll get into that at a later date. And even now, I'm pretty busy. But the point is, my wife and I have decided that we not only want to pass this on to our children, but we want to pass this on to everybody. And I want to pass it on to everybody in a way that will activate your inner sense of sustaining, sustaining yourself, sustenance. For me, when I think about going hungry, it motivates me, because one time I had to go a couple meals. Yeah. I thought it was going to be longer. I was smarter than my sergeants, and I didn't take food with me on a little expedition that the Air Force wanted me to go on. I found out what it was like to not have food, and I didn't want to say that I didn't bring my food. So it was psychological, of course, because I scrounged off other people, but still, you don't want to be without food. I'm not particularly impressed with the food that we get from the stores. I have digestive issues when I drink their milk, when I eat their foods, so I just don't do it anymore. I've eaten my own food so long that I'm used to it. I eat less of it, and I think it does more for me, because I take the time to make sure that my soil is good and the nutrition of my animals is good, and this is all stuff that we're going to talk about and you can do too. So here's how we'll do this. This is the state of mind that I'd like you to get in. And here I am. I'm in the maintenance office of my shop. This used to be a livestock barn. We used to brood chicks in this office, and then now we've turned it into an office. We've painted the walls and cleaned it up a little bit. Same floor, and now I have a little desk in here, and we keep the tools in here, and then I have a drawing table over here, and we have shelves in here that we can keep stuff. But this is where we fix all of our stuff, and I think that's a big part of the homesteading model too. But here's how I'd like to present this to you. And this is the state of mind that I'd like you to be in. You have just come across the Atlantic Ocean on a wooden ship. It's taken you a long time to get to the New World, like 3 months. You've been drinking crummy water, and you've been eating crummy food. People have died along the way, and a lot of days you've just been below the deck, rocking around. Smell of urine, smell of vomit everywhere, It's not been a great trip. Tough weather, and you're sailing with people that just as soon you keep your mouth shut. So it hasn't been a good trip, and you have screaming kids, and hadn't been a good trip. You pull up alongside the coast of the Cape, and they drop anchor, and they put you in a longboat with all your stuff and your kids, and in you go towards this just green rocky shoal, and you're heading towards it, and it's like, this is it, because they're not going to take you back. And they're not going to let you go sleep on the boat tonight. You're sleeping there. So when you get there, you're getting there in September, because it's September now. What are you going to do? So that's the kind of the state of mind that I want you in. What are you going to do? And now we're going to discuss over the next 12 weeks in a video sort of like this, What are we going to talk about for the next week? What are you going to think about for the next week? And then we're going to get together. Okay, it's Thursday now, so we're going to get together on Tuesday, next Tuesday, and it'll be me, and then all of you, yous. I'm from Massachusetts. All of you folks, and that's where the secret sauce is. You've thought about it for a little while, and now we get to converse, right? You get to go out and get some of the stuff that I am going to recommend that you get, and then we get to converse. You get to ask the questions, and then I get to say, well, I did that one time and this is what happened, or I've never done that, but I would think this would happen, or I never even thought of that. Let me think about that, and then we'll reconvene on that. So this is a guild. This is a bunch of pros coming together, and we're going to mix, and we're going to share ideas, and when we leave here, when we part here, we're all going to be better people for it, because we've just arrived at Plymouth Rock, and we've got to survive, right? We've got to survive. So that's the state of mind I'd like you in every time we come, and you might even start thinking ahead, because I'm only going to give you a week at a time. All right, so the first week, the very first video, I'll be telling you this is what we need to do. And I'm just talking to you as a guide. I could say this would be the first thing that I would do, and you could say, well, I think I'm going to do this. Sayonara. Go ahead. Maybe you'll hit something better than you'll figure out a better way to do it. Maybe you won't. So there's that balance there. I used a guide one time to go and hunt elk, and if I had not used the guide, I would have wasted my time, because I could guide somebody else now because I've done it enough times, but the first time I didn't know what I was doing. So this is a process that I've done. There's many different facets to it, and I believe that I can guide you through this successfully. Okay, I'm coming up on 22 minutes. So I'm going to cut it off here, and the next video will be week 1. And a little bit more information. This is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my cell phone. My cell phone's worked out good up till now. And these are going to be uploaded onto a Facebook page that you have been invited to, and you must have been because you're seeing this. And on that Facebook page, you're going to get notifications during the week. Because the things that I talk about, when I'm going about my duties here, I'm going to pull my phone out and I'm going to say, here's what I was telling you about here. And I'm going to give you a 3-minute video on X, Y, or Z. And I don't even know what those things are going to be right now. I don't have a list in stone. This is organic, because this is what I do every single day. And if you were with me, if I was tagging you along, I would say, hey, here's what I was talking about with this fitting here, and these fittings are cheap, and you can get these, and da-da-da-da-da, and this is how we do this. This is what's worked for me. And those things are really helpful. And here's what happens. I may say, hey, these fittings are great, and they're available at this store, and you can go get these fittings. You may go in that store, and the salesman there might say, hey, those fittings are good, but these ones are better. And then when we convene, you can say, hey, you know what? And then when I go in there, I'll say the same thing, because a lot of times the salesmen don't tell me that there's a better way. They just figure I know what I'm doing. So there we go. That's an example. I like to tell stories, and I got a lot of stories to tell. There's a lot of things that have happened in my life, and I enjoy telling stories, and my nephew tells me that's one of my strong points. Okay, so here we are, 24 minutes. The nice thing is you're going to be able to pick this up years from now and go through it again. All right, and you will have access to me, so you can ask me questions and I can guide you the best I can. So I think that is really the secret sauce. These videos are going to be posted. You can watch them at your leisure. The videos that I post on Thursday, I'll just tell you right now, if you want to look at me while I'm talking, you can, but you can just as well Listen to it while you're driving to work. And I am not recommending that you quit your day job. I am not doing that. As a matter of fact, I'm recommending you keep your day job and have this as a part-time job where you are going to hone your skill sets, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to produce a lot of your own food. You're going to change your environment, all right? And we just probably need to unleash that in you, and let's see where it goes. Okay, this is Mark from Baker's Green Acres. Remember, anyone can farm.